I want to thank everybody for attending my gallery tour and the book signing. I want to give kudos and pops to the Jennings Gallery, particularly Corrine Jennings. And I should add Joe Overstreet, who's no longer with us. They have been very supportive of me here in New York for the last 30 years. I had my first exhibition across the street at Ken Kaliba House in 1988, was a group show. And so when I first moved to New York, I met Corrine through some other good friends, and I said, Corrine, my wife and I she was living in St. Louis, I was living here, and I said, Corrine, I need a summer job. She says, oh, go see Betty Statons at the Children's Art Carnival. And I went to see Betty up in Harlem, and she gave me a summer job. So everything is connected. Somehow we're connected. And you never know who you're going to cross paths with throughout your career, particularly my career. You know, it's always an adventure. I've met some very interesting, my high school sister, high school teacher, Carol Ray. Her sister is here, Janet Ray. Stand up, Janet. And her husband, Howard, is here. And I was thanking Janet this afternoon for her sister being so instrumental in putting me on a track of being creative and bringing out those energies. Because when I was in high school, they were saying, well, you're not graduating because you don't have any fine art. And I said, okay, just stick me in any class. And they stuck me in a ceramics class. And fortunately, it was your sister, Carol Ray. So I'm very grateful for that. And I want to thank my wife for supporting me on all my crazy projects, too many to mention. And that, you know, we're traveling buddies. We do a lot of things together, and we're back and forth to St. Louis quite a bit. And also, I don't want to forget the staff here at Ken Kaliba or the Jennings Gallery. They've been very helpful. Layla at the front desk, and Seth Kwan, who actually helped put up the installation here. Thank you guys. It's just been very, they've been very, very helpful. Anything basically that I've asked within reason has gotten done. So we'll talk a little bit about the installation here. The works, some of the early works go back to 2009 all the way up to 2020. The 2020 works are in the other room. These works that are behind me are from 2015, 17, 18. And my process, I'm going to talk about that a little bit in detail. Many of these paintings, you see small drawings here throughout our paintings. They are started off initially anywhere between 22 by 30, 30 by 40, 40 by 50, 50 by 60 paintings or drawings. And so I create these, what I call panels, whether the panels are paintings or whether the panels are drawings, charcoal, chalk pastel, oil pastels, crayons, and iridescent colors, acrylic paint. So it's multimedia in all these paintings that you see exhibited today. And they're all very different. And once I create enough drawings and enough paintings, then I'll start deconstructing those paintings and cutting them, as you see here, in a circle or whatever shape that kind of like spontaneously, it just hits me, well, this needs to be a square or it needs to be a rectangle. And the early works, some of the early works in the back, they're more on a landscape idea versus the circular works. These, I think, were like 2017, I think this painting came about, because I wanted to do large paintings to impress myself. And I'm forgetting my goddaughter and her niece, Kimberly H.M., who is my assistant, in terms of when I call her, I said, Kim, I can't move this painting. I need you to come over tonight. And she says, well, what time? I said, I need you now. So, she finds her way to the studio and helps me to move them, helps me to photograph the paintings, et cetera, et cetera. So, love you, dear. In some of the paintings, you'll see things that are totally abstract. You'll also see things that suggest flowers or rosettes, because I like the idea of floral. And so you'll see those in this particular painting. And then all over here, you may see just leaves or something that suggests a leaf or a branch from, but primarily I'm interested in thinking about what is the current political atmosphere, so that's reflected in the work. I'm also interested in music that is reflected in the work. In the book, I mentioned my grandparents, and I actually dedicated the book to my grandparents on both sides of the family, on the Owen side of the family and the Gatewood side of the family. Both my parents are from Arkansas, and I decided that it would be a great idea, because when I was a young person, I would always, my grandmother or my great-grandmother would say, grandson, could you thread my needle for me? And I'm watching them patch and cut pieces for the quilts. And so that's where some of these ideas came from. And then as people would visit the studio and now in the gallery, they say, oh, this reminds me of quilts. Well, I think a lot of that just kind of happened subconsciously, rather than just being conscious about, well, I'm doing quilts. That never really entered my mind at the time until I started listening to other individuals, seeing what they would see in the actual work, and then that would give me those ideas. Oh, well, maybe this is a possibility that it's quilts. And that's what you're seeing in the book also. Although he's not here, I want to give kudos to Ron Ali, who passed in early 2020. He was a collector of mine in New Jersey. I met him when he was here in New York, living here in New York. And I think the late 80s, early 90s, I met him. And him and his wife, Monique Ali. And with their input and their vision about what their project was, that's how my book came about. I said, I need to push this book through. I'm in the St. Louis Art Museum, and I'm surrounded by curators. And I said, oh my God, there's 10 curators here, and they're from all over the country. And so I just started soliciting. I literally started soliciting at that reception in 2019. I'm going to do this book. Would you be interested in writing an essay for my book? And I would collect the numbers from different curators, and I'm glad that it just kind of like clicked at that moment, because I had been thinking about it in 2017, 2018, and finally it just took off, and I'm very happy about that. So I do have to recognize the St. Louis Art Museum for their support, because I've gotten a lot of support from my hometown. This is another painting. It's in the 1,000 Museums catalog, which I kind of got involved in. They actually called me one day and said, oh, we like your work at the St. Louis Art Museum, and would you would you give us the rights to print your work as note cards and as posters? I'm like, oh, really? Oh, this is kind of interesting. So I had sent them one painting that the St. Louis Art Museum owns, and then I ended up sending them another 15 images, and all those images you'll see in the note cards that I have today. Unfortunately, I've kind of like ran out, but we have more coming. So that's been kind of an interesting experience as well. And this is an early painting. This is like 2011, so you can see the difference where it's more on a rectangle or a landscape than the circular later works. And before I even got to working on these collages, I was doing a lot of figurative work, and all of a sudden I just stopped and said, I can't do this anymore. And I started ripping up the paintings, and this is the evolution of that idea. I always think that, things are changing. The times that we're in are always changing, and so that's my attitude. I'm not going to be an artist who's been doing the same thing for the last 20 or the last 10 years. You're not going to see that in my work. I'm always thinking about moving and progressing forward. And what can I create that I haven't created before? So I'm always looking at different artists. I'm always looking at or listening to music or listening to writers. That's where I get my inspiration from. Here's another painting. I think this one was done this one was also done in 2017. I think 2017 was kind of an interesting year. I hired a PR person to help me promote my artwork. And let me just back up. The Energy series came about because of Carolyn Goodrich in Washington, D.C., and she is the director of Art Impact. And they have exhibitions of artists all over the country, all over the world, et cetera, et cetera. So she's in my studio, and she says, Gatewood, what's the name of the paintings? I said, they're untitled. Oh, well, what's the name of the painting? I said, Carolyn, it's untitled number 2011-0012. She says, people like titles, Gatewood. And I said, yeah, okay, Carol, okay, you know. So we're browsing around the studio, and she's looking, and she says, you know, this looks like energy. And I said, Carolyn, that's the title of the paintings, the Energy series. And so I thank her for giving me that idea. And so since then, I will do a body of work. And some of the works, these works are called from the Energy series. The later works are the abstract energy of sound, because I'm heavily involved in musicians. A good friend of mine here, J.D. Perrin, is here. He's a multi-instrumentalist. We saw him perform Thursday evening at Roulette. Thank you, Jay.
Thank you.
And so I'm always listening to music. I have music on every floor in my home where I live. The ground floors, second floor, third floor, fourth floor. There's music in every room. I wake up in the morning, I listen to music, whether it's the radio, et cetera, I'm listening to music. When I crash out in the evening, I'm listening to music. All kinds of music, whether it's gospel, jazz, blues, et cetera. That's what's moving me. And you can kind of feel that in the flow and the idea of movement, because music, it gives you that feeling of you want to move or you want to dance. And so that's what you're seeing in these works. And it's about energy, having the energy to really push the work forward and let it and make it say something. And it's about the underpainting. Technically, a lot of the stuff is about a lot of underpainting that you see here. Some of these paintings are, particularly these surfaces here, they may have like 5 or 6 different layers under them, because I figured out how to paint translucent, and so I want you to be able to see all the different layers, and then the glitter and the iridescence, which the lights reflect a certain way. So when you move around the paintings, this may reflect light, or it may reflect a darker hue, et cetera, et cetera. And, and sometimes we get into the scratch thing from the wrappers. Yeah, I'm into rap. I like rap. They had a thing on Video Music Box the other day. I was watching it, and I said, man, I used to come home from work and watch the Video Music Box, and that was inspiring, because that's a part of the culture as well. And so you'll feel that beat, that hip hop beat. And then areas like this, you'll see paper weaving. I've been doing paper weaving in and out of my career since the 80s. Back in the 80s, I had an exhibition at Lockhart and Pettis on 15th and 5th, where it primarily showed a lot of the paper weaving that I was doing at that time, mostly figurative work, because I was teaching, and I was teaching the kids, my students, how to paper weave, and I got that idea. So this particular piece is probably back from the 90s. This one patch here of paper weaving, I found it, and I said, oh, let me use it. I'm going to move to this particular painting. This is a 2019. You can see that the ideas are changing. They're more circular in form, because now I'm thinking about Sun Ra, I'm thinking about the planets, and I'm thinking about how can I move away from this information to this information. The materials basically are the same, but the idea and the approach is much different, because now I'm using all circular forms, except for perhaps the interior space here. It could be any kind of form, and then I will build around that with the circles. This is also a 2019. This is like a 2019. I believe this is a 2019. Yeah, this is a 2019, and this one is a 2015, 2016. And we're mixing the works up so that I can show you my stage of development in terms of works from 15 to 19. That's like 4 years. So the idea is different, but again, the paint medium, I'm handling the paint a little differently. I'm trying to figure out how can I expand the idea, but yet keep color in my work. I think I only have one black and white piece, one black and white painting, and I think it's in the other room. And even if I'm doing a black painting, you're going to see reds and yellow under the surface of the black. Hi, Jan. Jan is one of the curators that's in the book. She's from St. Louis. We've known each other a long, long time, 30 years, maybe. Thank you, Jan. And then the process of creating, for me, is the finished product. I like to control the finished product. I like to control the framing aspect, even when the paintings are purchased by someone. When I was in my early 1920, I was a professional framer. I worked at a framing house in St. Louis. We did gold leafing. We did all kinds of framing, large frames, small frames. We did stretching. I did everything. because I was in the process of learning how to do all that. So now, fast forward, I'm very particular about framing. So I try to, take the framing to a whole nother level because it's a part of my process. So a lot of things that you'll see framed here this afternoon, they're in small shadow boxes, or maybe a 1 inch or 2 inch shadow box. That's important because I want the paintings to float off the wall. And I think that's because of my three-dimensional background. This gives you sort of a three-dimensional feel when you look at it because the lights cast a shadow around the object. This particular painting, I think this is the second exhibition that it's been in. The first show was at Rush Art in Philadelphia through Danny Simmons. They invited me 2018, 2019 to exhibit there. And again, the idea of the process, it's framed, it's in a shadow box. This is actually plexi. And I'm exploring the idea of movement in space and time. I'm really interested in line, and you can see, again, the iridescent colors throughout, or the glitter. Well, this is actually iridescent, but it's like paint layers, 3, 4, 5 layers of paint on top of this particular area here. And then I wanted you to see the ground of the work. These line movements, it's from my floor. I had a, what do you call those floors? They call them, no, they're made out of, rubber. Yeah, but there's it's rubber. It's all that, and so it was. In my studio, it was crumbling, and I was picking it up and getting ready to throw it out, and all of it ended up in a box, and I said, "Oh, I can use this." So I started laying it down on paper and then started tracing it, and so that's how these line fragments came about in this particular area. But I'm influenced by a lot of other artists. European artists, African American artists, Spanish artists, you name it. I'm influenced because I've studied all that. And I'm also looking at a lot of young contemporary artists. And if those who don't know me, since 2018, I think, I started curating, working with the University of Hawaii in Hilo. I've exhibited quite a number of exhibitions, artists. And Corrine, I jumped back to Joe Overstreet in 2019, I think. He was ill. I only saw him maybe once. The show opened in Hilo, and Corrine saw the exhibition, and she said, "Would you like to bring the show here?" Because I said, I'm going to feature Joe Overstreet in the University of Hawaii. And so we brought the exhibition here. And that was kind of interesting, the logistics of it. I don't remember all the people. There were 2 people from DC, 2 female artists. Michael Marshall was there. Aziza Hunter Gibson from Washington, DC, and Sheila Kreider from DC. I curated that exhibition here. So I'm working on another exhibition now for the university. I'm not going to mention the artists' names yet because it's not written in stone. But I'm enjoying that, and so I'm always looking for other artists to not necessarily take their work, but looking at what they're doing and how they're trying to experiment. And some artists, they just scare me because they're just way out there. They scare me in a good way. It's like musicians as well. I went to hear Ed Blackwell years ago. I forgot what club it was. And he was, and I'm like, what is he playing? And I'm like, I couldn't decide if I liked it or I didn't like it, or it was just above my head at that time. And so I said, oh, I think I need to go buy a bunch of Ed Blackwell. So I bought like 5 or 6 of his CDs. And I said, oh, I hear what he's playing now. But sometimes visually, we don't always understand what the artist is saying. And I, I'm seeing that, and that's what you're seeing here. Some of this stuff, I don't always understand it, and then the audience will kind of like guide me through what's going on when I'm working. And usually when I'm working in the studio, I'm usually by myself. I don't usually allow anybody in the studio. I have a few close friends who come by or drop by occasionally, and I'll show them what I'm working on. But usually I'm very private about what I'm working on and creating. So it's a pleasure when individuals come by the studio and then we get a chance to talk. I appreciate that. These works, these are earlier works. This is, I don't remember. I think this is 2011, and then this is 2020. These are 2020s. And so I'm trying to leave this idea, and I'm trying to leave this, because this is also a later 20, but I'm moving into this kind of shape, trying to figure out that transition. It's like musicians, they go through transitions where they're experimenting and they're playing music and they're writing music to move on or move to a different direction. And so that's what these particular paintings are about. I think I have 1 or 2 of these, and I think it was like a body of 6 or 8 paintings. I didn't have space here to show all of them. But again, you're seeing the circulars, and then now we have this oval shape. Back in the 60s, the musician, he was saying something, I forgot. It's on a Blue Note record label. Hank Mobley, he said, no room for squares. So I'm doing circles. These paintings are, this is a 2012, and I think this is a 2012, or this is a 2011, so they're about a year apart. But it's that same idea. This is from the same painting, and so I would make this painting, and then I would just rip it. And then I would do the drawing, and then I would rip it. These are from the same drawing. And then because I'm into translucency or transparency, I want you to see through all the layers. So this particular painting has oil stick in it, whereas the later paintings, they are all acrylic. And I'll tell you a story. I met a guy, he's in Tampa, Florida, and I was using his pastels. And I called him up one day and I said, I really like your pastels, but they're too small. I said, can you make me some big pastels like this, about this big around? He says, oh yeah, And so I have this guy in Florida, Tampa, Florida, who custom makes my chalk pastels for me. I can't think of the name of the guy's name. Vision something. And so he sent me like 50, 60 pastels in a big box. I said, you didn't send the bill. He says, oh, I'm in New York. When I get back to Florida, we'll talk. So, and I said, so when he returned to Florida, I said, oh, could you make me another 30, 40 pastels? I really like the intensity of the color. And so whenever I need pastels, I just call this guy up and he just makes me these colors. And I said, man, I've never used these colors before. So, I don't tell him what colors to send me or ask him. I just say, send me colors. And so that forces me to change my color palette. So you'll see the intensity of the color here versus the color here, which is predominantly the chalk pastels, which I started working with maybe about 2 years ago now, maybe 3 years.
So you were saying music and different things influence you when you're creating the pieces, and so I'm interested in understanding or knowing what might have been the inspiration, to be
Well, at this time, I was looking at some of the Japanese painters. Komura is one. He had a show here in the 90s. I think he was like 80 then. I ran into him. I ran into his work at the Phillips Collection in D.C. I bought his book, and I said, "God, this is." And then I'm in New York, and he's having an exhibition in Soho. I said, "I'm going to meet this guy." So I had an opportunity to meet him. So I was, this is kind of, this is fast forward much later, but I was influenced by some of the work that he was doing. Landscape, it's primarily a landscape painter, but it was all abstract. And it's, I can't even really describe it, but, he was very fresh. You had these open fields, and then maybe he'd have a little house and, and all these different colors and things like that. So that's what I'm saying here with these colors here, and then the drawing, and giving you space to really look at the painting. I was surprised that the gallery put these two paintings together, because I was thinking they should have more space. But actually, they work very well together, and I hadn't thought of that idea. And if you notice, these two paintings are done in the same time period, because you'll see the iridescent colors, the glitter here, and you'll see these paintings here. You'll also see it over here at the same time. And these were done, I think, in 2017. Yeah, 2016. Okay, 2016. So I was trying to figure out, because I had retired from the Board of Ed in 2012, and I said, I got 5 years to get to the next level or do whatever I want to do. And so I actually hired this person out of Miami to help me promote my work, and I think he said, "Oh, you need to do some big paintings." So these paintings came about because of those ideas from this particular individual. Again, a lot of drawing. The chalk pastel is by a different manufacturer versus the ones that we just saw in the other room. You'll see like little rosettes, or here, because again, I like to add some type of information that my audience can grab onto, rather than just keeping it all abstract. And you'll see the repetition not only in these paintings, but the painting over here as well on the wall. I think one or two of these paintings were also exhibited in Hilo. I had a big two-person exhibition in Hilo at the East Hawaii Cultural Center back in 2018, I think. Yeah. And so I was able to roll them and ship them to Hawaii. And that's a whole nother venture. I mean, unbelievable. Because paintings are big, so you just can't like fold them. You got to roll them up and then re-roll them in order to get them to the location. Any questions about any of these?
I have a technical question.
Hi.
So you told us the importance of pastels and where you get them from. What do you think about paper? Where do you get your paper from?
Throughout my career, I've always experimented with paper. I'm using, and I don't mind telling you, I'm using Stonehenge, and it's 50 inches this way and 150 this way, so I buy it by the roll. And I'll tell you a story. Years ago, I was at Washington University in St. Louis in the bookstore, because they were selling it. And the lady said, well, how many yards do you want? And I walked in, I said, lady, I want the whole row. I don't want a piece. And she says, oh, well, wait a minute. I can't make money at this price. I said, change the price. I'm taking the whole. I said, matter of fact, do you have 2 rolls? So I wasn't using a lot of paper then, but I bought the roll. She didn't sell me the second roll because she was going to lose money. And it wasn't until, and I would just go to different art stores in my hometown, and I would look for paper sales. And I would buy, I would go in and say, well, oh, you got a paper sale? How many sheets? Well, we have 150 sheets. I said, well, I'll take all of it. Because it's more economical to buy the whole bulk than just buy 1 sheet or 2 sheets. And I was buying color paper, 50 sheets, 60 sheets, and all the great paper companies. What was it? New York Central? I think New York Central. You had closed up. I love that. And Pearl Paint closed up because I could go in there and find different kinds of paper, Fabiano and Italian paper, handmade paper, different rice papers from Japan. Some of the early collages I have, they have, and I still have, and I would just walk into, even now, a few years ago, I walked into Dick Blick and they had some really nice paper. That's 5 years ago. It's just still sitting there. I'm just looking at it. But I like the paper, and I said, well, eventually I'll figure out what to use. So I'm always susceptible to different types of paper because paper, this is, I think it's like 350-pound weight cold press. And then they have, no, this is hot press. And then they have cold press, which is a lot thicker and it has texture. This is a little smoother tooth, the hot press. So there's different paper weights like 150, 180, 210, 230, 250, 300, 360, 400 is really thick. So those are different kinds of paper. And I probably have all that stuff somewhere in the studio. Just, hi.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I was also really interested in your drawing process because in the image that you're, in the work you're standing in front of, the panel just above your head, the sort of red and rust, that one.
Oh, yeah.
Has a really particular calligraphy to it, which is,
Oh.
and then the black and white one right at the center of the image. I mean, the drawings are.
Oh.
Can you talk about the drawing?
I'm going to do this outline. This is an early painting or collage that I made, and I didn't like it. It didn't work for me. And so I said, it needs to grow. So it grew to this. This is acrylic, a whitewash over charcoal. And then I would, years ago I learned how to take charcoal vine and soak it in linseed oil. So once you put it down, it's not moving. So some of those, I don't know if it's this particular drawing, but some of the other drawings where I'll use that technique, they don't teach you that in art school.
What about your actual mark making on the paper that gets that particular graphic image?
These
Right.
areas
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
Well, this is pastel, and then because it's not sealed, I'll take my hand and smudge it, and then I'll go back over the line to push the line forward, and then to move these spaces back.
So it's all just abstract, it's not like a Native American or Afro-Cubism or something like that?
I'm looking at all that. I'm looking at Native American work. I'm looking at Latin American painters, contemporary and earlier.
Like Afro-Cubans?
Afro-Cubans. Don't ask me to call names right now. I'm kind of stuck. But yeah, I like Raymond Sanders out in California. years ago when I was in grad school, Oliver Jackson used to come see me when I was in grad school, because his parents lived maybe 15 minutes from my studio. And he says he would, yeah, he has a show actually in St. Louis, and he's in Art Basel right now and a couple other places. He's really hot again. And he would drop by and says, "Oh, I want to see what you're doing. What you doing, man?" I said, "Oh, well," you know, or my other artist friends would say, "Oh, Jackson in this town, man." So we're all jockeying, trying to get out, because he's, you know, Jackson's like 80 now, 84, 85. So he's about 15 years my senior. So that was always very interesting. And then another very good friend was Quincy Troop. He would always say, "When are you coming to New York? When are you moving to New York?" And I said, "When I finish grad school, I'm moving to New York." So that's what brought me here. For me, it was never a thought about moving to the West Coast. It was always about moving to New York. Because I was reading Herb Gentry and Al Loving, Vincent Smith. A lot of people don't know Vincent, but he was a figurative painter. Howardina, you know, Pendel. So these were the artists that I was trying to come to New York to meet, because I had not met them, and I wanted to be in that circle. And so once I moved to New York, I was able to get into that circle. Frank Bowling would come to my early exhibitions when he was back and forth in the United States. I think I had Frank Bowling, Al Loving, they were all there. You know, Jack Whitten. I met Jack Whitten in 94, 95 at the Joan Mitchell Foundation with Shekiah Booker. You know, I didn't know who Jack was at the time, and we became very good friends. You know, Shekiah, we were following her my wife and I were following her all over the city, because she was having all these exhibitions here in the city, in New Jersey, et cetera. We would just drive where she was and just hang out.
She's just had too many retrospectives.
Pardon me?
She's just had too many retrospectives.
Right, yeah. No, I've known Shekiah 20, 30 years now. Yeah, so I'm honored to be able to say that, and to know all these people. And like Frank Wembley, I met him at June Kelly, and he walks up to me and says, "Oh, how you doing, young man?" I'm like, "I'm fine." He says, "I've been following your work. I like your work. Would you like to I can get you an exhibition." So next thing I know, I have this group exhibition or two-person show up at Windsor Polytech, because he had that connection. And I've shown there quite a few times because of Frank Wembley and his wife. Juanita, yes, Juanita. You know, just recently, Frank called me last month in October. It was October, November. He says, "Oh, I haven't heard from you in a while. What's going on?" You know, so I enjoy that, because, you know, I don't always have to call, and, you know, and so that's been a big influence as well. So the line music, the line movement it's all about the rhythm and timing and how it feels at that time. But this was probably, and actually this particular paper is, I think it's a BFK Reeves cold press versus this paper, which is a different paper, which is Stonehenge. Because this is it's not as flexible as this paper. So I actually stopped using this paper. I have a whole slew of it in the studio. But I was looking for a paper that has more flexibility. And I was looking for, well, how do I glue these things down? And I experimented with different types of glue. Some were too toxic to even deal with. And so I finally found a polymer that would give me the flexibility. So I can actually literally roll these. When I brought them here to the gallery, I had them on sonotubes. Hi.
So we know you like to control the how are you getting them to adhere to this wall?
Oh, this one fell off the wall. Command strips.
Okay.
Command strips. They come in various sizes.
Yeah, yeah.
And a couple of weeks.
Some staples and some.
Well, actually, I actually stapled the larger pieces because I didn't want them to fall.
Right, gotcha.
But normally, all the other works, they're hung with command strips because I didn't want to put the staples in them.
Gotcha.
And yeah, so that's how they're hung. Yeah. Any other questions? Hi, Gavin.
When you're putting these together, do you work, like, do you start with the centerpiece and work outside, or do you start on the border and work yourself inside?
Say that again?
When you're putting these together, do you start with the centerpiece and then work your way outside, or do you start working
With this particular painting, I started putting these things together, and then I started spreading out. I usually lay them out, and then I will take blue tape, which doesn't tear the paper, and I'll have all this stuff. I'll have tape all over this because it's not glued. And then these particular paintings I had to lay on the floor because they're so large. So I would literally tape them so that I could move them or I could walk around them in the studio. But usually, that's a hard question to answer.
So you glue last?
I glue last. Yeah. Usually when I'm making all these shapes, they just kind of like happen spontaneously. And then I know that I need to figure out, with this particular painting, I wanted it kind of jagged edges. So that's what you're seeing here. But trying to figure out, this is so dense, well, I need kind of to open the paintings up. So that's why you're seeing these spaces here where it's less dense. So it'll give you visually, it'll give you a rest, you know? So that's what I'm doing here. Because this is very busy. This is stenciled. So I was doing stenciling because I wanted to make my own stencils and make my own shapes in the paintings. Yeah.
That is almost African fabric type.
This has African motif in it, and that's what I was looking at the time. So yes, you're right on the money. I was looking at the different symbols.
Where does the idea start? Where does the idea originate for the whole thing?
From having the conversation with you, or with her, or with my musician friends. Michael, how you doing? I have a lot of friends here today. Thank you. My neighbors are here. Thank you. You know, I'm always reading, and I'm always buying books, and I'm always searching for a new visual language, whatever that means. I'm still trying to figure that out. You know, so I will put these together, but that doesn't mean that they're going to stay. Because one day I might just walk in the studio and say, nah, this is not working for me visually, and so it either grows or it gets ripped up again, and I'll move on. This is a latter part of 2020, and I'm working on a new body of work called The Flow of Music Equals Time. And this is the transitional piece, and then the other one that has the lattice. These are, no, not this one. There's another one somewhere. These are that transition to try to figure out how to say what I just said, the time with music and the flow of music. I wanted to get really, really detailed, and so all these are individual paintings. You may see some of these throughout the gallery, but all these are individually painted and cut from larger paintings, this particular piece or particular painting. These are the more recent pastels because they just have the depth that I'm looking for right now.
Your custom-made pastels?
Pardon me?
Is that your custom-made pastels?
Yeah, these are custom-made pastels here and here. All these are custom-made for me. These colors here. And this guy he's really, really good. I think his name is Frank, I can't remember. But it's really nice to call somebody and say, hey, look, I want X amount of product, and then he just sends it. And again, I said it over. I said, hey man, you haven't sent me a bill. You know, how much are these things going to cost? He said, oh, I'll get back with you. And so that's how. And again, you can see a lot of the underpainting. I was talking with someone other. This is what I consider a black painting, because the black layer is on top of all the other underpainting. I just think when I'm looking at Islam and things like that, they hardly ever use black, like in their carpet making and in traditional carpet making. They don't use black. They use blue or navy blue. So I'm trying to figure out, how do I make my black stand out from other people who create black paintings? You know, because to me, just to have a straight black painting, that's boring. You know, so I have to figure out, well, I need red, I need yellow, I need orange, I need purple or lavender, and then I'm going to stick that black on it, and then I'm going to make the black translucent so that you can see through it to see all the other colors. You know, this is a quite interesting piece. And then we have, again, the iridescence here, the glitter under that. So there are about maybe 8 layers of paint between these two underneath. This particular painting came about because I was bored. This is a 2018. I think this is the first time that I've actually exhibited this painting. This is a different paper. It's a lot thinner than this painting paper. I don't recall what that paper is. But the rest of it is Stonehenge. And so I'm experimenting, and you see these line movements, which you saw in the other paintings over there. That's from the pieces from my floor. I think I finally eventually got rid of all that stuff because it was just getting to be too much in the studio. And then I'm just kind of like randomly placing the reds or the orange to push it forward and then push everything back. Though that's the process. And then the drawing is to give you space, is to give you more space. This is a little dense. This is dense, but then here it lightens up in those areas. This is another later piece, 2020, January 15th, 2020, almost 2 years now. And I'm dealing with all these spheres because I'm dealing with the planetary stars, and I'm trying to figure out, what is space exploration? And actually, I'm thinking of the artist from Atlanta. God, I can't think of her name right now. And she had this, and she was dealing with all the planetary stars. And I said, God, I'm doing kind of the same thing, but she has since passed. She had a show in Chelsea a few years ago. God, I can't think of her last name. Sorry, guys. So that kind of like influenced this whole idea of this circle or sphere. And then these are all basically the same size, whereas here they kind of vary in size or in scale, And then to calm the eye, again, I'm just using a few lines to pull you into this area here.
Are the circles from one particular large painting?
Yeah,
or three large paintings?
There are 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 large paintings in this work.
Okay.
But primarily these are from the same painting.
Yeah, okay.
And these are from the same painting. And you may see them again throughout the gallery here. And this is the same kind of idea. I'm not trying to be totally symmetrical with these, because I find, if they're too symmetrical, they get boring for me personally. So I deliberately kind of like made it look, but again, it still gives you that symmetrical feeling. But but yeah, it's on a circle, but it's still an asymmetrical shape. And these are two different paintings, and we've seen these again in the gallery elsewhere. And then the line, it's like in the galaxies you have this thrush. So that's what I'm thinking about here in this particular drawing, that thrush throughout the galaxy. It's like in and out. Yeah. Constantly moving. And that's how I think about painting and drawing. It has to constantly move. It's not going to be stagnant. And by the way, I still do figurative paintings. I just haven't shown them, because right now I'm really focused on the abstract thing. And this one also, it's constantly moving, and you'll see where the planetaries are placed in different space, and it keeps it moving in that circular, because we're all constantly rotating.
There's some black dots in there. What is that? Is it paint or
Where are the black dots?
like around here?
Oh, that's glitter. That's black glitter. But it comes at a certain size, centimeter, and so you'll see it sporadically throughout. But then it's part of the underpainting. It's not. This is the final layer. The red is the final layer.
Is it like a matte finish, the glitter, or does it reflect?
No,
the light?
no, it reflects,
Oh.
but it's just how the light is
Yeah.
hitting. Even here, there's glitter here as well, but it's done very thinly. It's not built up, whereas some of the other paintings, you'll see it here. This is a little more dense, so it's a matter of how thin I want to make it or how dense I want to make it. Do I really want it? Because if I really make it dense, it's like, oh, that's too much. So I'm figuring, but the glitter is suspended in a polymer, a liquid emulsion. And then I mix it, and then I can spread it either thick or thin. So it's taken me a while. And then if you look under here, this is actually like the female fallopian tube. I saw a East Indian couture designs, and I said, "Oh my God, this is slick." So, but it was much narrower, like the female, and I said, "Okay, well, let me kind of like open it up." But this is actually representation of the female fallopian tube, and so you'll see it here, and then you'll see it here, and I have it in and I have it in a figurative drawing that's more prominent. That's like 50 by 60. It's a really big drawing with this symbol in it. So I just regurgitated that symbol because I thought it worked. Just quietly, yeah. So this is a very interesting painting.
Venus and that's Mars.
Yeah, I'm not going to disagree. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So we're all captured by the planets and space exploration. This is another painting that's kind of like on the same premise with the chalk pastels. There's no oil pastel in here, so it's all acrylic, some line drawing, and using different thicknesses to create different weight thicknesses. Because that keeps the eye moving, and it keeps me from not being bored. So any more questions? I think that's it. Jan? Thank you. I want to thank everybody. A lot of my neighbors are here. Patrick, Elisa, Mr. Cosin, I saw him performing, great musician. Saw him performing with J.D. Paran Thursday. That was Thursday. Yes. We met at a Nanette Carter exhibition, and I walked up to him. I said, "Oh, I just bought your CD. Was it Martin Luther King?" Tones, yeah. And he looked at me, he said, "Oh, really?" I said, "Yeah, I've been listening to it all day." So that's where I'm getting my inspiration from. The musicians who live here in New York or all over the world. I sent Warren Smith, who also played Thursday, I sent him an email, and he emailed me back. He says, "Man, when I'm looking at your work, it reminds me of music." And I emailed him back. I said, "Yeah, because I'm listening to you." So we have that connection, and that's what keeps my work moving forward. And I thank everybody for coming.